Mother Teresa, a beloved saint, founder of the Missionaries of Charity, and Nobel Peace Prize winner, was born Agnes Gongsha-Bohakshu in northern Macedonia in 1910. The youngest child in an Albanian family, she grew up faithfully Catholic and first felt the call to serve God at age 12. In 1928, after she turned 18, young Agnes left home to study with the Sisters of Loreto in Ireland, not knowing that this would be the last time she ever saw her family. After learning English in Ireland, she joined the Sisters of Loreto Missionaries in Darjeeling, India, as a novitiate. On May 24, 1931, young Agnes took her initial vows to become a Sister of Loreto, and in 1937 she became a sister, adopting a new name with her new life, Mother Mary Teresa. For almost 20 years, until 1948, Mother Teresa taught at St. Mary's High School in Calcutta. While she enjoyed growing deeper in her vocation, she couldn't help but find her mind and heart being drawn past the schools and convent and into the city streets. Calcutta, an already poor and overcrowded city, was still reeling from the Bengal famine of 1943, and Mother Teresa felt drawn to leave the comforts of the convent and not only go and serve the poor but live amongst them too. The desires of her heart and the path God set before her came together on a train ride to a retreat in Darjeeling in 1946, when she was 36 years old. Mother Teresa received what she referred to as a call within a call to leave the Sisters of Loreto and devote herself fully in service of the poorest of the poor. Speaking of this call, she said, "I was to leave the convent and help the poor while living among them. It was in order, to fail would have been to break the faith." 2 years later, she received the blessing of her superiors to leave her teaching position and to create the Missionaries of Charity, an order of sisters that not only worked in the slums but lived in them too. She never hesitated in speaking the truth of her heart, saying, "Our poor people are great people, very lovable people. They don't need our pity and sympathy, they need our understanding, love, and respect. We need to tell the poor that they are somebody to us and that they too have been created by the same loving hand of God to love and be loved." The first iteration of the Missionaries of Charity was informal and humble. She designed their habit, a white sari with 3 blue stripes to symbolize the sisters' vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. She didn't have any training or resources, which would have been enough to stop just about anyone else from even trying to make a difference. But in her humility, she began her ministry, and God provided. She was granted Indian citizenship and received medical training. Soon after, she was joined by other women who felt a similar call to serve, and they began opening open-air schools and hospitals. They had no donors, they had no aid, the sisters would only beg and pray for the food and medical supplies they needed to help those around them. But Mother Teresa was overcome by the suffering around her, writing, "Our Lord wants me to be a free nun covered with the poverty of the cross. Today I learned a good lesson, the poverty of the poor must be so hard for them. While looking for a home, I walked and walked till my arms and legs ached. I thought, how much they must ache in body and soul looking for a home, food, and health. Then the comfort of Loreto came to tempt me, you have only to say the word and all that will be yours again," the tempter kept on saying. "A free choice, my God, and out of love for you, I desire to remain and do what be holy in my regard." I did not let a single tear come. Despite these hardships, in 1950, Mother Teresa received permission from the Holy See to make the Missionaries of Charity an officially recognized order. They began to grow in number, accepting droves of new novitiates while also opening hospices, schools, and shelters. The missionaries knew they wouldn't be able to save everyone, but they cared deeply about allowing people to die with dignity, insisting that everyone was spiritually accompanied through their death by the sacred text and practice of their own religion. Mother Teresa was revered as a holy woman by all types of people with all types of faiths and backgrounds. Describing this, her friend Father Paul said, "Since Hindus, Muslims, and Christians all take her for a woman of God and a holy person, they all wanted to get a blessing. In India, to get a blessing means to be touched on the head individually. Many people prostrated themselves and then got a blessing. She gave each one a miraculous medal, whether they were Christian, Hindu, or Muslim. Everyone was so happy they got a miraculous medal from her." In 1952, the Missionaries of Charity opened a home for people with leprosy, a highly contagious skin and nerve disease. The home, Shanti Nagar, not only housed and served those suffering from leprosy but also acknowledged their dignity by giving them the means to work. Over the years, Shanti Nagar became, in many ways, a self-sufficient colony as its residents raised animals, grew bountiful gardens, and even became responsible for the dyeing and weaving of the missionaries of charity's saris. As her popularity spread, Mother Teresa never missed an opportunity to use her platform to spread truth, no matter how unpopular that truth might be. In 1979, she received a Nobel Peace Prize. In her acceptance speech, she spoke of Christ saying, and to make sure that we understand what he means, he said that at the hour of death we are going to be judged on what we have been to the poor, to the hungry, naked, the homeless, and he makes himself that hungry one, that naked one, the homeless one, not only hungry for bread but hungry for love, not only naked for a piece of cloth but naked of that human dignity, not only homeless for a room to live in but homeless for that being forgotten, being unloved, uncared, being nobody to nobody, having forgotten what is human love, what is human touch, what it is to be loved by somebody. And he says, whatever you did to the least of these my brethren, you did to me. It is so beautiful for us to become holy through this love, for holiness is not a luxury of the few, it is a simple duty for each one of us, and through this love, we can become holy through this love for one another. And today, when I have received this reward, I personally am most unworthy, and I, having avowed poverty to be able to understand the poor, I choose the poverty of our people. But I'm grateful, and I am very happy to receive it in the name of the hungry, of the naked, of the homeless, of the crippled, of the blind, of the leprous, of all those people who feel unwanted, unloved, uncared for, thrown out by society, people who have become a burden to society and are ashamed by everybody. In 1995, she spoke at the National Prayer Breakfast in the United States and didn't hold back in telling Americans what she perceived to be the greatest spiritual poverties in their nation. Abandonment of the elderly and sick, degradation of the family, drugs, and abortion. She said, and see, this neglect to love brings spiritual poverty. Maybe in our own family, we have somebody who's feeling lonely, who is feeling sick, who is feeling worried. Are we there? Are we willing to give until it hurts in order to be with our family, or do we put our interests first? These are the questions we must ask ourselves, especially as we begin this year of the family. We must remember that love begins in the home. We must also remember that the future of humanity passes through the family. I was surprised in the West to see so many young boys and girls given to drugs. I tried to find out why. Why is it like that when those in the West have so many more things than those in the East? Here is the paragraph with all the words included. And the answer was because there is no one in the family to receive them. Our children depend on us for everything, their health, their nutrition, their security, their coming to know and love God. For all of this, they look to us with trust, hope, and expectation. Often, father and mother are so busy that they have no time for their children. Perhaps they are not even married or have given up on their marriage, so their children go to the streets and get involved in drugs or other things. We are talking of love of the child, which is where love and peace must begin, there in our own family. But I feel that the greatest destroyer of peace today is abortion, because Jesus said, if you receive a little child, you receive me. So every abortion is the denial of receiving Jesus, is the neglect of receiving Jesus. She passed 2 years later at the age of 87, but just a year before she died, she wrote a letter to her fellow missionaries that encapsulates her legacy. Entitled The Varanasi Letter *, it reads, My dearest children, sisters, brothers, and fathers, this letter, being very personal, I wanted to write in my own hand because there are so many things to say. Even if not in mother's hand, still it comes from mother's heart. Jesus wants me to tell you again how much love he has for each of you, beyond all you can imagine. I worry some of you still have not really met Jesus one-to-one, you and Jesus alone. We may spend time in the chapel, but have you seen with the eyes of your soul how he looks at you with love? Do you really know the living Jesus, not from the books, but from being with him in your heart? Have you heard the loving words he speaks to you? Ask for grace, he is longing to give it. Never give up this daily intimate contact with Jesus as the real, living person, not just the idea. How can we last even one day without hearing Jesus say, I love you? Impossible. Our soul needs that just as much as the body needs to breathe the air. If not, prayer is dead, meditation is only thinking. Jesus wants you to each hear him speaking in the silence of your heart. Be careful of all that can block that personal contact with the living Jesus. The devil may try to use the hurts of your life and sometimes our own mistakes to make you feel it is impossible that Jesus really loves you, is really clinging to you. This is a danger for all of us, and so sad because it is completely opposite of what Jesus is really wanting, waiting to tell you or not only that he loves you, but even more, he longs for you. He misses you when you don't come close. He thirsts for you. He loves you always, even when you don't feel worthy, when you're not accepted by others, even by yourself sometimes. He is the one who always accepts you. In this letter, she also reiterated her focus on Jesus' words on the cross. She urged her followers to hear the echoes of Christ's words through the voices of the poor and sick in their own neighborhoods. She wrote, "Why does Jesus say, 'I thirst'? What does it mean?" Something so hard to explain in words. If you remember anything from Mother's letter, remember this: I thirst is something much more than, deeper than, just saying I love you. Until you know deep inside that Jesus thirsts for you, you can't begin to know who he wants to be for you or who he wants you to be for him. Our Lady will help with all of this since she was the first person to hear Jesus cry, "I thirst" with St. John, and I am sure Mary Magdalene, but she was there on Calvary. She knows how real, how deep, his longing for you and for the poor. Do we know? Do we feel? Ask her to teach you. Before it was Our Lady pleading with Mother, now it is Mother, in her name, pleading with you. Listen to Jesus' thirst. Let it be for each what the Holy Father said in his letter. How do you approach the thirst of Jesus? Only one secret: the closer you come to Jesus, the better you will know his thirst. 10 years after her death, a collection of Mother Teresa's personal writings were published for the first time, and the contents made headlines around the world. Her letters revealed that she had experienced a period of spiritual desolation that no one, with the exception of her confessor, had known about. Privately, she wrote, "There is so much deep contradiction in my soul. Such deep longing for God, so deep that it is painful, a suffering continual and yet not wanted by God, repulsed, empty, no faith, no love, no zeal. Souls hold no attraction. Heaven means nothing to me, it looks like an empty place, the thought of it means nothing to me. And yet, this torturing longing for God. Pray for me, please, that I keep smiling at him in spite of everything, for I am only his, so he has every right over me. I am perfectly happy to be nobody, even to God." While the publishing of her private doubts drew criticism from cynics, the faithful found hope in her words, interpreting them as a sign of solidarity. The revelation of Mother Teresa's dark night of the souls was perhaps her final humble gift to her devotees, as it proved once and for all that faith is not a feeling, and that we can do incredible things for God and our neighbor despite our doubts. Even in the wake of all this controversy, the case for Mother Teresa's sainthood was brought to the Vatican almost immediately. She was beatified on October 19, 2003, and canonized on September 4, 2016. Today, the Missionaries of Charity are active in 133 countries, with over 5,000 sisters across the world. They continue to carry on Mother Teresa's legacy by serving the poor, lonely, and sick without fear or pride.